Hey there and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug video. And today, we're going to be once again diving into some predictions for Season 5, which, if rumours are true, is looking like it's closer than we initially would have thought, at least if Gloob has anything to say about it. Seriously, they're hinting at June, which, considering the usual pace for release dates, makes me a little bit surprised and honestly a touch apprehensive. Hopefully they're not potato quality. But anyway, back on topic. Because today, we are going to make a grand prediction, and honestly, maybe it's not even a huge prediction based on the progression of this person's character, but today I'm putting forward the notion that Natalie is going to kick the bucket at some point during Season 5. Yeah, I know it's a bit of a big call to expect that a show marketed towards children is going to outright off one of their side characters, but honestly, if it's good enough for Disney, I think it should be good enough for Zagtoon. And I just think that all the signs are starting to point in that direction. And let me explain. And honestly, we should start from the beginning. When we were first introduced to Natalie during Season 1, all she was Gabriel's goon. She didn't have much of a role outside of that. She'd do his bidding, relay his orders to Adrien, and organise his life while he was out staring out a window in fancy dress surrounded by butterflies. She kind of acts as a bit of a secondary antagonist, but mostly for Adrien's storyline, as she almost always sides with his dad because it's what's best. And that's what her role remained as for a significant amount of time. Until we got around to Season 2 and saw the introduction of the Peacock Miraculous in the finale, where she officially joins Gabe as one of the two main villains of the show. And then, throughout Season 3, she remains in that role as the secondary antagonist, appearing in like 5 or so episodes as Mayura and making some senti monsters to fight against our team of heroes. Except this, as we learn, comes at a cost to her health, as every time that she uses it, her body becomes a little bit weaker, as we learned happened to Emily. Hence why she's locked in a freezer in the basement, and Gabe dresses up in a suit and helmet to torment children on a regular basis. And because Natalie decided that she wants to be able to challenge Cat Noir for the title of the King of Simps, she decides to keep on using this thing, even though every time she does, she gets a little bit sicker. Yeah, because that's the kind of thing a smart and reasonable person will do. Good stuff, Nat! And so this means that by the time of the Season 3 finale Miracle Queen, she's well and truly stuffed, and mid-battle she collapses and has to be rescued by Hawkmoth, and thus their plan ends up failing. So coming into Season 4, this means the status quo has shifted once again alongside her role in the story, as now she's no longer capable of using the Peacock Miraculous. Considering she seems so weak that a slight breeze would probably finish her off for good and send her swirling off into an early grave. And indeed, based on her portrayal in those early episodes, it really isn't looking that good, as she's essentially bedridden for much of that time, constantly coughing and spluttering, and unable to perform any of the duties she attended to originally. And then at some point in Season 4, she gets, a brace, robotic legs, something like that. But it doesn't seem to work too well, as she's still dying and freaking collapses on the train at the end of Season 4. And literally nobody in that episode even cared. Gabe all but hung up the phone, and Lila smirked. Ugh. I mean, I know she's a pathetic simp, but even poor old Natalie deserves better than that. Damn. But moving on, you might look at this and say, why do you think this means she's going to die during Season 5? Well, apart from the clear signs of a deteriorating terminal illness, there's a lot of narrative potential and setup in such a storyline, and it could potentially have pretty big implications on the wider lore and story as we know it. But even beyond that, if they don't pull the trigger and just have her be sick forever, that's boring writing, and it's wasted screen time. Like, what a waste of time. Why should I care about any potential storyline if this one, the one that's been running through like 2 full seasons, and even ties in the storyline of Emily Agreste, who despite being dead is one of the most important characters in the story, and is the driving force behind the narrative and the decision making of the primary antagonist. If they can't even manage to wrap up this storyline in a satisfying way and just use it as bait or a misdirect, then what the hell's the point? And so I really don't see any other way for it to go other than to continue to double down on this storyline, and if I'm being honest, I think they will follow through with making this a very significant part of next season. Even if it doesn't factor into that many episodes, I can see it being part of the more important ones. Particularly those last few that are going to wrap up Gabe's whole thing. Because surely we're at least agreed that this has got to be the end for Gabe. We are quickly running out of track for his train to run. And if they keep him going past this season, there's a very real possibility he'll go completely stale and boring. I mean, they did a great job of freshening up his storyline and character last season, so let's just keep it that way. And so yeah, that means expect more coughing, more collapsing, more robo-legs, and more bedridden Natalie getting fed by Gabe or Adrien. And of course, this is all going to culminate in her biting the big one and shuffling off the mortal coil, which in turn opens up a lot of narrative potential for Gabe, because to me, it's clear that Gabe needs a little bit of added incentive to actually get his hands on the miraculous. His whole arc has been about trying to get his wife back. His story's kind of getting tired, and he needs a little bit more depth to his character, a little bit more angst. And so it's a good thing that we have this ready-made storyline that's been brewing since Season 2 to kickstart whenever it's needed. And of course, what's that added incentive? Why, having another loved one dead would be a good place to begin. And I mean, let's be real, he does love this woman. Whether you view it romantically or platonically, he does love her somewhat. She's basically his only friend and his confidant and has stuck by him whilst he's done some pretty heinous shit. Plus, he lets her stay and rest in his house with him acting as her personal nurse, bringing her food, water, tea, you name it. If the dude ever actually manages to wake his wife back up, there'd be no way in hell to convince her that Natalie wasn't his mistress. Come on now. Even Adrian can see it. And that kid misses romantic signals every day of the week. But yeah, there needs to be some delicious moral dilemmas. Because with Natalie dead, it opens up a big time problem for Gabe when he inevitably gets the miraculouses from the heroes. And I mean, it's a bygone conclusion that he at least does get his hands on them. And so who does he choose? Because let's be real, in this kind of story, the wishes probably have to be really specific. So no doubling up. He can't wish them both back for the price of one. It's one or none. And so clearly, he'll choose to bring back his wife, and thus, Natalie's going to stay as a comatose corpse thing. And we get an episode filled with Gabe's regrets and sadness, and I think from here, either one of two things happens. Either Marinette, somehow through the power of plot armor, has survived the wish, because she's the main character. Sorry, Adrian, the writers just hate you, mate, even though this feels like this should be your storyline, but we'll just quietly shuffle you off to the side. Or Gabe is convinced not to use the wish at the last minute, or he does use his wish, but he reverts the wish himself after he realizes what an awful man he was and how fake everything is. Hell, maybe he even confesses to Emily in this new wish world and she rips him a new one. Honestly, I do like that second option. And I also don't see a show like this throwing Gabe in prison forever. I just don't. It feels like it doesn't fit in with the tone. And so he needs some sort of pseudo-redemption where all the characters can kind of pretend like he's a changed man and that all the things he did weren't even that bad. It doesn't matter, mate. And this kind of storyline would be perfect for that because it's a deeply cheesy ending. And it's very anticlimactic. And thus, it's perfect for Miraculous. And I honestly can see it playing out this way. And bonus points if afterwards, Marinette unlocks some hidden miraculous power that's never been heard of or referenced before and uses it to awaken both Emily and Natalie. And everybody lives happily ever after. Boy, that would make for an interesting family dynamic. So yeah, obviously my thoughts are a little bit jumbled about all this. But I'm expecting the ending of this saga to be very, very cheesy to the point of cringe. Happy endings all round and not a sad character in sight. And why? I just feel like Bittersweet's not one of the things that this show strives to be. It's light entertainment. And Asterix doesn't seem like he has it in him to be too heavy in the end. I mean, he constantly trumpets on Twitter about how this is a kid's show. Don't take it too serious. So, I'm not going to. And so, this is the end of the video. And I would like to say that these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of my little theory? You think I'm on the right track, or am I way off? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.